Hey, this is Matt. Once again, welcome back to the video. This is another paid request. This time for Yellow Devil. And if you hear a little bit of background noise, I am not alone here for today. Exactly. So, Yellow Devil sent in the paid request. Thank you so much for that. And for those interested in requesting any type of videos, topics, reactions, commentaries, what have you, feel free to send it either directly to my PayPal or join my Patreon. Both links are down below in the info box. So this is for the last hurrah for Chivalry from 1970, forget the year, 75 or so. It's a pretty early John Woo film. This is well before he did The Killer, Hard Boiled, Better Tomorrow 1 and 2, as much more of a period piece, swordplay. But I would say this, if you're a fan of swordplay, if you're a fan of sword action, this is one of your meccas. This is one of your pieces of heaven because there's a ton of it. It's very well done. And it's not in the Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, like over the top, people flying in the air. It's just very well crafted swordplay. And there's a lot of it. So the plot is, this guy named Chow, K-A-O, Chow, that going to married and kind of find out his fiance is a betraying hoe from the whorehouse, and this guy tries to give him an early wedding present, which is a bloody pig head, and a fight erupts. And then you get like sword fights in the foreground and the background, so you have all these people having sword fights at the same time, which was not the easiest thing to do. One thing leads to another, he escapes along with some men, and he doesn't know what to do, and he seems pretty scared and frightened, and the type that doesn't want to fight his own battles, so he's going to try to find others to do it for him and go against the bad guy. So ultimately you get these two guys, Chain, who's a guy that doesn't want to deal with the sword until ultimately he picks up the sword again, and this drunken assassin named Green because of he wearing green. So Chain, you get the idea of Chain, this guy, he's got a sister, and he forces this guy, oh, you have to go marry my sister, huh? She's not good enough for you? Pretty much steers the guy into fucking getting him to marry his sister, but also wants his mom taken care of as well, and he takes care of his mom. While Green has this girl that kind of likes him. Not a whole lot seems to be done with that portion, but it is there. And Green is one of those guys that you're not sure what his motives are. Like he helps this criminal at one point, but then the criminal betrays him, so he fucks him over, so he fights and kills the guy. You also have this third guy, which I think he has a different name, but in the dub I saw, he was called Prey. But I think if you watch maybe the original version or the subtitle, it's a different name. And this is called Prey, as he puts it, when someone touches my sword, I pray when I kill them. And apparently the cat didn't like that line of dialogue, thought it was too corny, so now he wants to leave. So, yeah, go ahead. He didn't like that line of dialogue. I mean, I can see what he means. Because, yeah, it's, when someone touches my sword, I pray when I kill them. Okay, whatever. But really, it's one of those films that lives and dies by the sword. And what I mean by that is, like Chain and Green, I didn't mind those characters. The more the movie played out, they don't get together till like halfway through the film, and then when they're there, you kind of get this back and forth camaraderie, I should say, this camaraderie that becomes more interesting as it goes along. And John Woo definitely, even at this point, had a good handle on action sequences. They may not involve guns, but he definitely had a good handle on them. Because, like, for example, Prey wants to show his sword skills against Chain, so they get into a fight. And there's a piece where one is falling to a hut, and he's stabbing through the hut and stabbing back and forth. There's another set piece where there's like 36 fighters guarding the palace, and the two are fighting a bunch of these what look like white ninjas, going back and forth and fucking these people up. There's some sword versus chain fight sequences. There's a bit where there's a cage that comes down, and those two and two bad guys are stuck in this small cage, and them trying to fight amongst this small space with some interesting choreography. I would say the best bit was the two fight this guy who is called the Sleeping Wizard, where kind of like Jackie Chan when he would get drunk, he was a drunken master. Here, when this guy sleeps, then he becomes more of a master. But it's also the downfall because he'll be sleeping, but he accidentally burns his face at one point, or he tries to sleep and he slips and falls on something. It definitely made for a different, unique fight. And maybe some would deem it a bit too silly, but I got some fun and chuckles out of it. And this is pretty well done choreography. Listen, I mentioned there's no flying around and wire work. It's all done, practical, like on the ground, feet on the ground, sword play. This is very good choreography. The story, I will say the story at times felt like it took forever to get going in terms of, okay, the plan is to go from point A to point B to this bad guy, but it feels like it takes forever to get to that point because it's either the guy Chow doesn't really want to do it, and his subordinate is like, oh, are you too scared, and I knew your father, and you're disrespecting him, and Chain is like, well, I don't want to fight. And I get it, it's all like this build up, but there's a part of me when I got to know, I'm like, where's this more going? Is it going to really kick into high gear? Is it really going to... It's one of those movies that I don't really know what I got out of, other than the swordplay. But on the flip side, there's so much swordplay in it that it's fun to watch on that front, at the very least. At the very least, if you like sword fights and swordplay, and you want to see a lot of that within the movie that's fairly well choreographed, at least you get that. I just maybe kind of like Enter the Game of Death. Like, I enjoy that movie, and most of that movie is just the Bruce Lee going around beating the shit out of people. And that's Bruce Lee with L-E. So, kind of on that front. But to be fair, compared to that one, you just say this has a bit more work into the character of who Chain and Green are, and them. I kind of wish they got together earlier in the movie. Maybe that's something like maybe 25 minutes in, they could have gotten together and get to know each other, but it feels like it happens maybe halfway through. So sometimes there's a little bit too much lollygagging around. But at the flip side, yeah, it's this guy dealing with his sister, and this guy trying to mess with his sister, and come on, you don't marry her or not, and again, this guy gets... But like I said, sword played good. I mean, that could be the whole review. Sword played good. Lots of it. The end. That's really the big crux of this movie. And again, if you want to see John Woo in an early state of affairs and him knowing how to utilize the action and the getting people in the right spot for the choreography so it doesn't look too herky-jerky or too confusing. And there's some nice set pieces. I mentioned, there's 36 fighters they're fighting. A lot of them in these white ninja suits. There's the bit where Green gets hit by Chain, and the other guy Chain has to save him, so he does like a nice flip to cut the Chain. And like I said, the cage that falls down, and there's 4 2-on-2 fight, 2-on-2 cage fight. There's a Sleeping Wizard, which brings a lot of very different unique comedy bits into that sequence. Even when they're fighting the bad guy that they're there to hunt down, I like that the whole area is lit by candles. And the bad guy has this tendency that he has all these hidden pieces of, I guess, like alcohol or something. So he drinks, he blows it, so the fire blasts in our lead characters' faces. I know that throughout the film they're each saving each other's asses, but it still felt like Green was saving more of Chain's ass, at least the more prominent times. I mean, there are times where Chain saves Green, like when Green gets hit by the chain and Chain, the other Chain, stops it. So I guess, to be honest, they have their fair share. But it felt like they want Chain to be the lead guy, but it felt like Green was maybe the better fighter, or I don't know. Maybe I'm just discombobulated on certain things. Spoiler alert, you find out that Chow, the guy, is actually a bad guy as well. And he told Green, I'll give you 500 if you, after you kill the bad guy, you kill Chain as well. But then they've had this camaraderie where they don't do that, so the two of them go after Chow and fight him and his men. Could use a bit more of them fighting the men. There's a little bit of that, but at one point it's kind of Chow talking and the two of them talking as the camera kind of zooms in. So you see them fighting, but you don't see a lot of the wide shots. Maybe they thought the movie had enough of those. And sort of get to the final point, which is super spoilers. I said there's no flying, I guess I lied. To be fair, the bad guy here, Chow, the new bad guy, he does fly up. Just something about this sword he's got or something. And he do like these dive bombs. I think they try to melt that up a bit more with suspense. Maybe a little bit more close calls. They do a little bit, but I think they try to melt that a bit more. Ultimately, was this a nice bit of slow-mo building tension that John Woo did that you would see in later movies where the two look at each other, but Green notices something that Chain doesn't, and he kicks Chain out of the way and puts his sword up, so the guy impales him, but he's able to impale the bad guy. And then Chain, like, no. And it ends abruptly. I know that happens a lot of these movies, but I hate how abruptly it ends. It's pretty much Chain next to the dead Green. And then the movie's over. And it's like, okay, I guess it's over now. I know that's what happened a lot of these type of movies, but I hate how abrupt those type of endings are. They should have at least had one or two more scenes where they, bury the guy, or they talk to that girl that was with Green. Because she kind of just disappears and you never hear of her again. So it's like they have her character with the Green character, but then I think she kind of just disappears, fucks off. It would have been nice if she came back, either to help Green or something else to that effect. Or some other type of thing. So I wish the ending was not as abrupt and went a bit longer. I wish the movie, I don't know if I wanted like a tighter pacing or just the dick going a bit faster until their journey to get to this bad guy. And but like I said, the main crutch of this movie is the swordplay, and there's a shitload of swordplay. And whether or not you want to see an early John Woo film to show what he's capable of before he got into the gunplay later on, and B, if you like the swordplay. If you do, you don't get a kick out of it, and I got a kick out of it. It was fun to watch on that front. And like I said, the two guys, Chain and Green, to me they're nowhere on the level of Bullet in the Head and the way those characters were, or The Killer, or Hard Boiled. I wouldn't put these guys near to level of those. Maybe, John Woo is his first, it's maybe things would get better writing wise as years come and go. And the actors here did their jobs fine enough. It wasn't like anything mind blowing to me. I can't remember the music. But it worked respectable for what it needed to employ. Like I said, great sword choreography, some nice interesting set pieces. I would say the third act is easily the best part of the movie. And it's not too much incredibly dumb humor. Like sometimes these movies try to put in forced, like, potty humor, piss humor, fart jokes. Because a lot of times that's what is found funny. Thankfully, they don't put a lot of that in this movie, which is nice. Maybe that's John Woo's doing. I would say this: if you like John Woo, like I like John Woo, and you're curious about his earlier work, this is definitely one to at least give a watch for. I know it's on YouTube. I don't know if it's on there for, because you never know, these movies could disappear anytime. It's worth a look. It's definitely worth a look. And I would watch this over Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and Hero, and some of those other later movies. Because this one wasn't, even though I complain about the pacing, it wasn't boring. At least it had enough sword fights that really kept the viewer interested and intrigued and wowed. It is very well done. So, definitely give credit to that. I'd probably still put, I think it was called Duel to the Death, which ended on the cliff. I'd probably still put that above this, because that one had some really interesting, there's a bit here where people come out of the ground, but that one, it felt like it had even more crazier sequences in it. But I think it was called Duel to the Death. But this is definitely up there in that. And I'm not really that type that goes in that period piece. I don't know what kind of style you would say. I don't know if it's called wushu or. That's not really my forte. I'm much more of the gunplay, later John Woo era. But this is definitely worth a look. It's fast sword play that's not, with once in a while a bit of John Woo slow mo. No birds though. This is before the pigeons and before the doves, I should say. Pigeons and hard target, but doves and other, before all that stuff. But once in a while you get a little of that taste of that slow motion John Woo bit. And for the kind of movie he's doing, it's fairly well done. So especially, like I said, the third act I would say is definitely the best part of the movie and worth a watch alone. But there's a lot of good parts throughout it too. So with that said, thanks for watching. Take care. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.